Today I'm going to be whipping up a creamy coffee cheesecake with you guys. I put a poll up on my community tab last night to find out what you guys would like to see, and it beat out the cornbread and the sticky rice, so let's get to it. I am going to be using a 7-inch Fat Daddy-O push bottom pan. The bottom comes out for easy removal. I have a parchment paper round down in here, and I will be buttering the sides so it will come out very easily. This cheesecake basically has 3 parts. It has crust and then a filling and a sour cream topping that you put on after it's cooked. The ingredients for the crust are almond flour, some butter, and a sweetener. You can either use sugar or a non-calorie sweetener if you're making this a keto cheesecake. This is a monk fruit plus erythritol sweetener that is 1-to-1 measurement for sugar, and that's what I will be using today. The filling is going to have cream cheese, Greek yogurt, some vanilla, some espresso powder, and that is what makes it coffee flavored, a pinch of salt, also some sweetener in the filling, and then 2 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. Then the last 2 ingredients in the sour cream topping is just going to be some sour cream along with some of the sweetener of your choice. So I'm going to be making the keto version of this cheesecake, but the only difference between the keto version and the regular version is the sweetener. So if you just want to make it regular, go ahead and use sugar. I'm also making this an almond flour crust, which is really delicious, and it keeps it grain-free and gluten-free. But if you're not worried about that, you can always use a graham cracker crust or like a crushed chocolate cookie crust, which would be really delicious with the coffee filling. The first thing I'm going to do is butter the sides of my pan, so that is all ready to go once I get the crust mixed up. I'm not worrying really about buttering the bottom of the pan since it's got the parchment paper on there, but the sides need a little bit of help. First thing I'm going to do for the crust is melt 2 tablespoons of butter before I mix in the almond flour and the sweetener. For almond flour, I'm going to do 2/3 of a cup. And when I do a graham cracker crust or some kind of a cookie crust, I don't typically add a sweetener to it just because it already has a sweetener in it. But of course, almond flour doesn't have any sweetener in it. So I am going to add 2 tablespoons of sweetener. 1 and 2. And I keep my almond flour in the freezer, which means it gets a little bit lumpy. And so I'm just going to mash the lumps to try to get it all mixed in with the butter. Now to get it pressed into the bottom of my pan. When I make cheesecake crust, I like to just make it completely flat all the way across the bottom. Some people like to push it up the sides of the pan just to cover more of the cake, but I kind of like the look of it just being a flat disc on the bottom of the cheesecake, but it would work either way. Now that that is flat and even, I'm going to stick it in the freezer while I mix up the rest of my ingredients. One of the most important things to remember when you make a cheesecake is to let your cream cheese come up to room temperature before you get started. You should be able to easily mix your cream cheese with a spoon before you even begin the process of making the cheesecake. It will make everything so much easier. It will help you avoid over mixing, which is one of the biggest mistakes you can make when making a cheesecake. These blocks of cream cheese have been sitting out already for a couple of hours, but they're still not quite as warm as I would like. So I'm actually going to stick them in the microwave for just a few seconds. I don't want the cheese to cook at all. I just want to get it a little bit warmer. So I will probably do like 5 seconds at a time until it softens up a little bit and stir in between. You can see that that's still very hard to mix. It's very, very stiff. So let's go see if we can soften it up real quick. I did 3 about 10-second intervals, and this is how easily it stirs now. So much better. I'm just mixing up the cream cheese so that there aren't any lumps. If I get rid of the lumps now, it'll make it so much easier to keep it lump-free when I add in my other ingredients. Now I'm going to add in my sweetener. I'm doing 1/2 cup. And I'm doing 2 tablespoons of the instant espresso powder. Oh my goodness, my tablespoon doesn't fit in there. Thankfully, I have another one over here that's a little bit smaller. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/2 cup of full-fat Greek yogurt, although fat-free or low-fat would work as well. The last ingredients for the filling are the eggs, but I do not want to add those until the very last minute, and I want to make sure that I don't overmix those when I add them in, because if you do, you will get like a souffle action going on and your cheesecake will rise and it will not be nice and dense and creamy like it should be. Just making sure that this is all mixed up and there are as few lumps as possible. At this point, you don't have to worry about overmixing it. It's just after you put the eggs in. So this is the time to get all of the lumps out. And you can see how when you start with really soft cream cheese, you don't even really need to get out a mixer. You can just mix it with a spoon, and then you avoid the possibility of overmixing even more because you're just using a spoon. One ingredient to the filling that I forgot is just a pinch of salt. Now I'm going to add in my egg and my egg yolks just one at a time, and I'm going to mix them very gently just until they're mixed in. I'll save these leftover egg whites and throw them into a scramble or something for breakfast. Switching over to a spatula, make sure I get everything off of the edges. I don't want any chunks of cream cheese that don't get mixed all the way in. All right, don't want to mix it more than that. It's time to fill up the pan. The crust got nice and hard in the freezer. Doesn't that look gorgeous already? I am going to tap it on the counter just a few times to release any air bubbles to make sure it stays nice and dense. I'm using my 8-quart Instant Pot today, and that's just to make the cheesecake easy to remove, but it will fit in a 6-quart Instant Pot as well. You just might want to put a sling underneath a foil so that it makes it a little bit easier to remove in that tight space. Adding 1.5 cups of water, and I have gone back and forth on the need for foil or not to cover it while it's cooking. I have come to the conclusion, I think, I may change my mind, but I think as long as you're careful when you remove the lid of the Instant Pot not to dump the condensation right on top of the cheesecake, I think you're fine without the foil. So I'm just going to try to get this lowered in here carefully. Now I'm going to lock my lid, make sure it is on the sealing position. I'm going to be cooking this cheesecake on low pressure for 40 minutes, so hit your manual or your pressure cook button depending on what model you have, and make sure it is adjusted to low pressure and to 40 minutes. And once the cook time is finished, I'm going to let it natural pressure release for about 5 minutes before I open up the lid. Cook time finished, and I'm going to be real careful not to drip all the condensation onto the cake as I pull the lid off. Let's see if I can get this out easily. I'm going to get a paper towel and just get off as much water as possible off the top. There is some water here on the top, which of course would have been avoided with the foil cover, so it's kind of up to you what you want to do with the foil. You don't need it. You can just dab the water off with a paper towel afterwards, whatever you want to do. Now for the final step of the sour cream topping. I'm just going to do about 1/2 cup of sour cream with 2 teaspoons of sweetener. And if you really don't like sour cream, you can skip this step. It just, I think, adds a nice creamy top to the cheesecake. It's kind of like having the foam on top of your latte or something. Just gonna whisk this up, and it gets kind of liquidy as you whisk it, and that'll make it go over the top of the cheesecake easily. Also, because the cheesecake is hot, it will melt and smooth over the top of the cheesecake really nicely. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'm just going to let this sit on the counter to cool for about an hour before I cover it and transfer it to the fridge to let it chill overnight. And then we possibly will be having a taste test with the taste test panel. It is time for the taste tester panel to check these out and see what they think. What do you think of how it looks?
Amazing. Amazing.
Looks pretty nice, huh?
It looks pretty good.
All right, so which ones of you like coffee? Renee, you don't like coffee? All right, so everyone needs to keep that in mind as they're viewing, that these are kids who don't start out liking coffee. You guys ready to test?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and get a bite and see what you think.
Very coffee.
Very coffee-y? Yeah. Do you like it though?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Even though it's very coffee-y? You're going in for another bite. It must be pretty tasty for you. All right, Renee, what do you think?
Infinity 100 thumbs up.
Infinity 100 thumbs up? That's amazing. That's the highest praise you've ever given anything. Okay, Talia, your turn. What did you think?
I think it's okay. It's not the best, but it's not the worst.
So pretty much you like everything about it except the coffee flavor?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I love it.
And the graham cracker thing on the bottom is really good.
Yeah, that's actually just almond flour. I was surprised at how good the almond flour crust was too. I hardly even miss a regular graham cracker crust with the almond flour. I think Charity likes it.
Here.
I think this is a gateway drug to coffee.
Here.
Gateway to coffee here. This cheesecake is definitely very coffee forward. So if you don't start out liking coffee, you may not enjoy it. But if you like coffee, I think it's the cheesecake for you. And if you like a super, super sweet coffee, you can increase the sweetener, by about a quarter cup. I like the half cup of sweetener in the filling because it's sweet enough, but not overly sweet. And you still, it's more dominated by the coffee flavor than by just the sweetness. Renee said how many thumbs she gave it, but Charity, how many thumbs do you give it?
Infinity.
Infinity? Talia, how many thumbs do you give it? 1.5? One?
Yeah.
Just one thumb up. Well, that's pretty
I
good.
half like it, half don't like it.
Oh, okay. That's pretty
So
good.
like that.
So like right in between, so like this.
Oh, there you go. You could do two
Yeah.
halves like that. There you go. All right, everybody say bye.
Bye.